Thank you. So, the main thing, what is today's topic for me is the marginalized youth and their inequalities. This is a topic which really cut across all the different section of the people,
The
and
presentation
particularly
is
the
clear, sir.
people
The
who are
presentation is okay.
marginalized. Thank you. So, what we see is that marginalization is a process where people are left behind, people are not allowed to come in. So there is always a force. There is always force which keeps things out. Like if you see a uh, moving circle, it tries to keep things out to come from the center. So the power structure, the interest, move in such a manner that the people are pushed out to come and take the central stage. Some of them who are unable to come fight with the power, unable to reach to the central place, become marginalized. And the marginalization is connected with the social exclusions, because the people who are marginalized, who lives at the bottom of the society, they become socially excluded. So this whole conditions of marginalization and social exclusion creates the inequality gap. And we see the inequality gap is increasing at different front. When you look at the hunger index, when you look at the job index, when you look at the financial inequality in India, how it is increasing, we see that there is a lot of inequality gap, and the youth are one population who are at the center of it, whom we call as the demographic dividend. We need to invest on them. We need to see how they could take it up. We see that there is a problem that they are getting socially excluded in this whole process of power, which pushes them out to come from the center because of their social position, because of the different issues which we will talk. So this inequality gap is increasing. So ultimately what we understand from this word, from the increasing poverty, looking at the people who are living without adequate support in different third world countries, developing countries, or when we are getting to a civilized country like that, what conclusion we draw ultimately? That in 21st century, civilization have not learned how to live civilized. And we see when the political people, political leader fail to accept their social responsibility, their accountability to the society for what they are being leader, we see marginalization become a severe problem. So people get marginalized in different way, in different dimensions. So to talk, we need to understand, why do we need to think about why ending marginalization, which is causing inequality gap, is important to deal with. There are many commitments towards democracy. There are a lot of commitments that we have to bring democracy. And an effective democracy means inclusion. The countries are working on the welfare concepts. We are committed to ensure welfare of the people. So there is a welfare concept. We have to eliminate progress. We know the social justice principle says no one should be left behind. From the MDG to SDG, we are looking that we need to pull everyone up to create a sustainable society. Till the time we have the people who are unequal, who are marginalized, our society cannot go up. It's like a body. If one hand is not working or one side of the body is not working, definitely some functionality impact, some functional deficiency comes in. So we need to understand that we are trying to illuminate the progress. So we need to deal with inequality. We have to establish fair practice. From 1949, from the Human Rights Day till now, we are still struggling to establish a fair practice where everybody has the voice, has the equality. So it is a commitment to ensure equality and poverty and hunger, give every youth to come up at the equal platform to raise their voice, work with their full potential. So to say that, we have to work in all these things. But the question comes, if not, then what? If it doesn't happen, then what happens? If the commitment of the democracy is not fulfilled, then we need to live with the false pride. That's become the problem. Lot of false pride are being imposed onto it, based on the identity, which may be linguistic, which may be ethnicity, which may be religion. So the false pride is induced in the youth, that you feel good, and you see the conflict which is going on in the Karnataka colleges, the neighboring state, and it is spreading all over. We take pride out of the dress, not out of the quality what we have. If we get marginalized, if youth get marginalized, if their attention is diverted, the pride comes from something else, not from their knowledge, not from their value system, not what they're learning. So we live in a world with false pride. When there is higher inequality, higher marginalization, which leads to the brainwashing to think something than what they're really supposed to think. And an unrealistic hope comes up. It is being nurtured, it is being created in different conditions, in different parts of the world. What the young soldiers learn, there were some videos coming up in different forums. They learn how to kill. They don't learn how to love. So there is an unrealistic hope, this will come, that will come. But what actually they're supposed to learn, they are not into it. So youth need to get the real hope. And then there are a lot of fabricated facts. As we are in the era of 21st century digital world, you see there is so much fabricated fact, so many fabricated news, which is again impacting our real situation. We tend to understand what we're supposed to do. And there is a lot of unchecked problem if such problem goes on. So the fake promises starts growing. So this condition is the main problem from where we have to come up. And we have to choose our commitments for an inclusive, sustainable society based on equality. So that there are different there is different pattern of marginalization which cause the exclusions leading to inequalities. So at the end, the firmly established inequalities, there are multidimensional: caste, religion, creed, the different kind of orientation, sexual orientations, everything. They are multidimensional. Sometimes it is linguistic, sometimes it is religion, sometimes ethnicity. So we do not know for what we are. And the youth is the force. When I particularly work in the disaster affected areas or in the peace building process, I see the youth as the one factor who can be very easily mobilized by creating a thought, because it is very easy to instigate the youth and mobilize them for the purpose of anything we want to do, good or bad. So youths are often used as the muscle power whenever there is a communal conflict, ethnic conflict, in whichever place, whichever country it is. Youth become the main force to come up and get misused. The same thing is happening in the recent war situation also. Who are these young people fighting? They are all those youths who had better potential, but they have been put into something else. There is a lot of process orientation. It is permanent and systemic. In many cases, we see it's systemic. It's permanent. It doesn't change on its own if we don't make a real effort to change it. So it's become a permanent feature of the society. Systemic. It's like a system, like you have a default system in computer. You put on the switch, the same screen come up. We called it the default system. So when you see marginalization, it's by default. It is happening. because we live in a society which is unequal, which we don't make enough effort to be it equal. Between East and West, between different colors, different religion, caste, so those systemic defaults of inequality continues, which leads to the exclusions. And what Amartya Sen very clearly says, sometimes we do unfavorable inclusion. That's also equally bad. The example you have seen in Kerala, or probably the news had come up that one Dalit women is of a Panchayati Raj institution sitting on the ground, where all the upper caste PRI members are sitting on the chairs. That's an unfavorable inclusions. So you don't want them because the system has said so you have to take them, but still reject them. So the same way we see many of in our university around villages, the village panchayat head is headed by women, but they have no voice. So the inclusion of the women in that case is an unfavorable. We do not want them to speak, though by name a woman is a panchayat leader, a panchayat member, but that inclusion is unfavorable, where she is not able to exercise her power, voice, thought. That also leads to a marginalization. And there is multi-level impact within an individual, within a family, within a community, within a state, nation. In this case also, I would like to mention that there was often a move to say end the caste-based reservation. I give an analogy. See, we have called India is free from polio. Why? Because 3 years there was no polio case reported. So let us take a stand. 3 years, there is no atrocities against Dalit. 3 years, all the seats at the Higher Educational Institute reserved as failed. Then you stop it. If we continue, if we look at data about the harassment, how does it show? That we need to take and understand that we are in a civilized world and we really not need to learn civilization. So exclusion happens from goods and services, what they're supposed to get, land resource, labor market, rights, security, lot of different things. So these inequalities are economic, gender-based, caste-based, physical abilities, religion, ethnicity, all that. Ultimately, what is happening, the 3 A's, it is excluding them from their availability, accessibility, and affordability. The youths are unable to avail, access, or afford the resource which is needed for fulfilling their opportunities, for their capacities. So what we see ultimately, it gets divided into powerful and powerless. And this conflict goes on when the powerless gets excluded from the society. So what has this creates the multiple layer of vulnerabilities. Multiple layer of vulnerabilities.
Sir, excuse me, sir.
Please.
Sir, slide is not moving.
Yeah, please.
It is in the first.
It is not moving.
Yes, sir. Now it moves.
Okay, let me not give it into the full slide then. Okay, so I talked about this, then I talked about this, I talked about this, then I talked about this thing that availability, accessibility, and affordability become the problem. So the people are unable to move. So there is powerless and powerful. So the question comes, there is inequalities versus justice. If we have to create a just society, a justice-oriented society, then what are the inequalities? These inequalities become a belief, a culture, a practice, a gimmick, an unplanned walk, a very centralized force, a top-down approach, pushing back people, leads to the inequality. And if we want to really dream, create, think about a just society, which talks about equality, voice and rights, satisfaction, better quality of life, fulfillment of the potential, prospect, growth, harmony. So that talks about the justice. So we need to see that if we can overcome the systemic denial, if we can overcome the denial of the rights, compromised pattern of living, insecurity and inabilities, we will be able to move from the paradigm which is in the left to the right, from the inequalities to the justice. So the purpose of working with the youth, to make them aware, to make them capable, empowered, that they are in a position to access their rights, able to access what they're supposed to get it. So there are different forms of inequalities, which to some extent I talk. This can come from poverty, lack of access of resource, belonging to the lower end of the caste hierarchy, the sexual minorities, the illiterate, semi-literate, unskilled, the deserted, widowed, unmarried, uncared youths. Often, like this number is again increasing. Survivors of the disasters, those who are displaced because of the environmental reason, diseased, lot of young with HIV/AIDS and many other disease addictions are becoming a major problem, which is causing the inequality, which is the disabilities. There are a number of victims of trafficking, the violence, victim of violence, addicted, refugee, displaced because of the war. War is not just here in Afghanistan, in Gaza, in Palestine, everywhere. If we try to see, it is going somewhere else. And if we try to take the map of the violence, poverty, we see that they match. The place which are more poor, the place which are more inequalities, are also affected by a higher number of violence marginalizations. So these are the different dimensions, different conditions which is leading to inequality. So the questions comes up, what are the cause of marginalization that we really need to work, and how to end it? What are the inequalities that are hard to crack? How do we perceive and understand, react to the inequalities? What do we need to end? Why do we need to end the inequalities? Is it the personal, social, or global interest? If we see that different forms of inequalities, there are some inequalities that are hard to crack. The cultural, societal, caste-based, so we need to work more on it because these are very hard. Many times, how do we perceive that it is part of the society, it is normal, it is natural, nothing to think much. Let's try something new, which are not so committed. So we need a committed effort to change those inequalities and bring our inclusive practice to end the marginalization. So there are different kind of human rights commitments. So we need to be equal. We need to understand that there is a social justice paradigm which we need to follow. We need to have the equality. We need to end exploitation and marginalization. So taking that, what we see that we have to work for empowerment and well-being. The very beautiful definition of empowerment which comes from Barker, he says empowerment is the process of helping individuals, families, groups, and communities. So we need to create a youth group, youth volunteer, youth influencer who could really end that. And the people who are at the higher educational institution, the students of higher educational institution, has a very important role to empower others who are unable to come up to this level. So what is that? Increase their personal, interpersonal, social, and political strength to develop influence towards improving their circumstances. So empowered youth can influence the circumstances, can influence those personal, interpersonal, socio-cultural issues, can raise voice and have the political strength, have an effective, meaningful participation in the politics, not just going for the vote for something else, which is very sad to say sometimes on lunch. So this is the conditions which we need to see. And that leads to well-being, because empowerment will give the well-being. So maintaining adequate physical, psychological, social, and spiritual health that contributes towards well-being. So a sense of positive health is very important. Maintaining a productive life, ability to fulfill all the potential, who can contribute to the nation building, and can facilitate, can be part of the sustainable development. So we need to see empowerment, well-being, connecting to the sustainable development where youth become the influencer to change the inequalities, allow others to come up with their voice. Looking a bit more with the well-being, what we see is that there is human capital, social ecology, and cultural values. So there is human capital which we have to improve. The capacities have to be improved. More in terms of Amartya Sen, we are saying nowadays capabilities, the ability to function effectively, ability to combine the complex nature of function. So we improve their endowment and entitlement status. Endowment means what the visible, invisible component, the resources he has or she has to produce an effective life for him, effective livelihood, living pattern, lifestyle for him or her. Entitlements comes from the government program, his ability to exchange what he produce in the market. So the market entitlement increase. The civic entitlement, what we get from the other CBOs, humanitarian service. So the youth, where they're suffering out of the conflict, out of the disaster, need to have the entitlement, higher entitlement. We have to engage. So we need to create a better social ecology, a connection, a network, relationship that promote the cohesion and equilibrium in the society. So a peace can come up. So a culture and value, a societal norms, the behavioral connect, the social expectations. In Buddhist philosophy, which was listening previous lecture, the Eightfold Path, what Buddha had said, it talks about that culture and values. How do we improve? How do we improve that? How do we go ahead with that? Once we are highly skilled, we are in a position to inculcate the values. Otherwise, we become a person without value. And if you see, all the people who does corruptions are very intelligent. The person Telgi who did the corruption, or the person who ran away with the bank money, are they fool? Definitely not. They're much more intelligent than what others are doing. And it is being seen that the underworld connections are much more stronger. So we need to create that value system. If the value system goes down, then the people will be unable to function. And values and skills are connected. When you train into the skills, effective skills of interpersonal skill, the person does not deny the value into it. So it is not just the value. Value in well connection with the skills and techniques is very, very important. Simple value education does not work. We say respect your elder is a simple value, but you need to give the skills also, how to understand respect. Otherwise, the girl or the boy gets harassed, even sexually harassed by their elderly people, whom they're supposed to respect. If we teach only value, they will be mum. So not just value, value with skills, value with techniques, where they have their voice and they know what is the right value. So well-being is largely connected with environment, economic, physical resources. So the pathway is individual, societal, and institutional. We have to empower the families, peer group, digitally responsible citizen we need to create. Because every youth creates his or her digital footprint. So we need to create that condition. So a better resilient society can come up. And a societal equality has to come up. Gender equality has to be worked in. And increased risk taking behavior has to be reduced. We need to create an employability among them. And the institutional engagement, infrastructural engagement, disabled-friendly engagement, inclusive belief, practice, peace education, all this goes hand in hand. So youths are a very important component in the sustainable development goals. There is a huge number, the statistics shows. But these youth are asking for justice, equitable, progressive opportunity. They're asking for better access. So the goal 16 specifically deal with the inclusions and the components of the youth's participation. So youth can be the positive force which is being stated in the Secretary General's Envoy on Youth. Youth can be a positive force for development when provided with knowledge, opportunity, they need to thrive. In particular, young people should be acquired the education and skill needed to contribute in productive economy, and they need access to job market, can absorb them into a labor force. So we need the education policy connected with the labor force, which to some extent is coming up, but still we need to see that whether we are creating enough job or only the policy, then policy doesn't get down to the reality. So we need to connect that very clearly. There are different programs which I will not talk. The government has has done different kind of program for skill development, for the startup scheme, for ensuring the financial benefit to the youths to start their own business, vocational skill training. Many things has been done. And UN agency of interagency network on youth development specifically given 8 points that how do we include the youth? How do you create a better sustainable youth participation? So employment, environment, participation in peace building, their social media engagement in promoting positive peace, youth policy, inclusive youth volunteering, UN system, all are very, very important. So there is some changes happening in terms of investment, life skills education, focus development, but more we need to do. We need to, 2014 policy have come, but still we need to think that who are the marginalized youth, how we are implementing our policies in a best manner, and how the youths are able to participate. So as a higher educational institution, we must be able to ensure that responsible youth, we must be able to teach them, show facilitate a responsibility, accountability among the youths. Show the person become most skilled, value-oriented, knows what to do, and participate positively in changing the world for himself, around, and for others. So we need effective skill building, life skills, vocational skill, disaster management skills, peace building skills, facilitate knowledge, attitude, and practice. Show healthy behavior, reducing the high risk taking behavior, promoting voluntarism in different forums, understanding about gender equality. Otherwise, we will keep going about GBV, gender-based violence. We need to come out from it and say that this is the gender equal world. So ensure sensitivity about the issues of marginalization. If the youth understand how his behavior, he or she will not do it further. Very commonly forwarding jokes. Does it target a particular community, particular gender? Then it should not be done. Facilitating sustainable practice. So youth for peace is also a very important dimension. A positive peace. The negative peace is just avoiding the violence. Positive peace where you inculcate the value of love. You inculcate the value of joining together, working together for each other. So we need to transform the conflict or disconnectment towards the peace and essentially for this development of the society and to ensure a sustainable pattern of living. So it's a process of commitment. And the last, I just bring a kind of structure that youth being in the middle has to look at the overarch. Youth as an individual, youth as a family member, youth as a community, youth in the group, in a nation. So the nation has to work on the 4 pillars. And our policy, our higher educational institute has to connect it very clearly, which we are trying to do. The sustainable development, effective legislation policy, ensuring honesty and commitments through that value system, through that skill system, and promoting a higher end work towards ensuring social justice and human rights. Show the participation, institution building, empowerment, social security benefit transfer, technology transfer, investment in the farm and on the farmer, and universal basic income. These are some basic requirements to ensure and to facilitate a better inclusion of the youth in our society. So I'll stop here and we have around 4 minutes for any discussions. So thank you. Thank you for your patient listening.